Hey guys, welcome back to another Leadfeeder webinar. We'll let people get their seats, let's say. So guys, if you're just joining, please feel free to put into the chat box where you're from. Let us know where you're from, where you're calling in from today. It'd be great to see where everyone's from. I'm just going to open up the chat for myself here. And remember to type, if you're putting anything into the chat box there, please select panelists and attendees so that we can see everybody. So I'll just type in where are you from. I see people from London, Paris, New Jersey, Seattle, Copenhagen. Got somebody in from Austria, Lisbon, Sweden, London, Netherlands. We're all coming in now. Dublin. I've seen somebody from Austria as well, which is interesting. I'm currently based in Austria myself. A lot of people are from London. Good few people are from Netherlands. Look at that, Philippines, Singapore. Guys, we've got quite the global mix here. Good stuff. Okay, well, let's see where the numbers are continuing to rise here, but we'll get started just in the interest of everybody's time here. So, guys, this is another webinar that we're going to be focused on today, just around lead generation. So one of the things that I've noticed over maybe the past 5 or 6 years, having been involved in marketing for the past 15, but lead generation specifically over the past probably like 7 to 8 years, is that it's gone from this like very like top of funnel approach, you know, just getting leads from your site and getting them converted by any means, sort of getting to sign up for newsletters and things like that, and having marketing teams focus on that lead generation piece, right? And over the time, it sort of changed to sort of demand generation focus. Growth marketing is another term that we speak about. Like when I think about demand generation, I think of, you know, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean this like traditional, let's get more leads in through the door and then let's throw these leads over across the sales team and expect magic to happen. Creating demand is like creating a demand in the space that you're operating in. So making people excited about your brand, making people excited about what you have to offer, and then in turn, them actually turning into what we would have referred to in the past as hot leads, stuff that the sales team are able to have a meaningful conversation with, right? So I think more than ever before, lead generation, demand generation, whatever we want to call it, there's more of a focus on this revenue generation piece. So like, how do you turn the stuff that you're bringing in for marketing into revenue? And then how do you then like attach that to revenue as you look at it down through the funnel? So how do you report on it, right? It's another thing. Attribution, super complex thing. Attribution, probably do a second webinar on that alone. Attribution modeling in a lot of cases to me over the years has been sort of like voodoo magic, black box, like mumbo jumbo stuff, you know, especially when you get into the weeds around multi-touch attribution and so on. It can get very crazy. But maybe we'll touch on that a little bit during the panel today. But I think as well, like just around the revenue generation piece, I think it's really important that from a marketing perspective, any dollars that we're putting in are coming out as dollars the other side in new business or existing business at that matter. And with that as well, I think one of the things that a lot of marketers and a lot of companies have struggled with in the past year is how do we adapt to the new normal? Like, how do we adapt to how people are doing business in the past year? And I sort of hate myself a little bit for saying new normal. But how do you go about lead generation? So typical lead generation channels, especially in the B2B space, such as events and so on, they've gone off the radar completely. Are virtual events a good match for that? I'm uncertain of that. Webinars worked pretty well for a while, but then there was a lot of webinars coming out, so it got pretty saturated. Like digital marketing, like in terms of banner advertising, display advertising, things like that, that hasn't really worked in a long time. So is that how do you use that as part of your marketing mix? All these different things. And companies in the B2B space in particular that haven't been particularly digital savvy have had to go into the digital space now and be like, okay, well, we need to start creating our business from digital leads. How the hell do we do that? So that's why we wanted to have this panel today to discuss all those different techniques and so on, and how to really dig into it, and some maybe really simple things that you can be doing in order to get a little bit better at that. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. So first and foremost, we have Gavin from dotdigital. So Gavin is the head of strategy and insight over there. He's been with dotdigital for over 11 years now, which is, I guess, Gavin, you've seen huge transition within that space, going from probably email first to then omni-channel. So using many different channels all together, with your messaging being consistent across all of those channels, right? It sounds simple to do, super complex to actually pull it off, right?
It's simple. It's simple. It's easy.
That's really easy. If you're using dotdigital, right? That's the
if you thank you. Yeah, you said it for me. Thank you.
So on top of that, Gavin's also an avid public speaker. I've seen some of the speaking things that you've been doing over the past couple of years. Super interesting, and also like a very high-level expert on email marketing as well. Being on the Direct Marketing Association, the Email Council, and that for the past couple of years as well. Pretty impressive. So yeah, Gavin, thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Then we have Adam, who's the head of demand generation at GetAccept. A little tidbit about Adam. Adam is just starting with GetAccept. So he's coming on there as their head of demand generation. So if I look at the stuff that Adam's done over the past year or so, I can see that he's a true lover of growth. So his growth is in his genes from what I can see on his LinkedIn profile. But he's been over the past year, he's been focusing on pushing about 50% plus of the revenue for the company that he was working with in the past. And now coming into GetAccept, he's now joining a company that was actually the fourth fastest growing company in the world in 2019. So you've got a bit of growth ahead of you, Adam, I guess, and I'm sure you're very excited about that, right?
Yeah, no pressure at all for me to get into that role. I think.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Much appreciated. And then last but not least, we have Liam, who's the head of demand generation over at Cognism. So we're actually a Cognism customer ourselves at Leadfeeder. Really, really interesting brand. I would say a great challenger brand against some of those bigger prospecting tools such as Zoom Info or Lead IQ. But I think that the data that I've seen from Cognism is very impressive. So we're using Cognism to break into our US market for our outbound team. Getting really great results from Cognism. But I can see as well, like from working with Cognism as well on other marketing related things, I can see you guys really understand the marketing piece, and I can see the stuff that you are doing along with your CMO is very brand heavy, very brand focused, and also being a company that prides itself on driving leads and driving more pipeline for sales. I guess that puts your position in the role where you need to start bringing things into hyper growth mode as well there, Liam, going into new markets and whatnot, right?
Yeah, 100%. No escape. It should be our bread and butter.
Absolutely. Lead generation is what you do as a company. So eat your own dog food, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, with that, we'll get started. Guys, just a bit of housekeeping for anybody that's here, that's watching. If you have any questions throughout, please do just put them into the chat box or into the Q&A tab. Remember, if you want to ask a question, please select, there's a little drop-down menu in the where it says 2 in the chat box. Click that and say panelists and attendees, so that everybody that's on the webinar can actually see the question that you're posting. Feel free to post any questions you might have. I'll stop in between and we can start answering some of the questions that people have from the audience. Okay, let's get started, guys. One of the things that's been, a core focus over the years for marketers has been bringing in, okay, obviously, as I mentioned before, top of funnel leads, but then it was like, okay, we need to get some qualification in here. So let's invent marketing qualified leads, right? So first and foremost, I want to get everybody's opinion on marketing qualified leads. So when you hear marketing qualified lead or MQL, what's your initial thoughts? And Gavin, maybe I'll start with you, mate.
I'm thinking really it's the first step for ROI. That's traditionally what I think. Where the marketing team is the ones that sort of kick things off along the funnel. But they're not just funnel feeders, right? We're not just sort of, it's not like the sausage factory. We're actually sort of going through and nurturing these leads to pass on to the sales team to convert. I mean, anyone can sort of just throw leads over the fence, but I think any marketing team worth its stripes is going to be sort of building these leads up, actually taking the time to, as I said, nurture them, and pass over to the sales team, so that they're actually happy with the leads that they're getting. So it's definitely something that is sort of, I guess, evolved and transformed over time. I think some people, as I said, just sort of look at MQLs as just sort of the sausage factory, but it's definitely evolved over time, and it's because some of the tools that we have to nurture the leads and understand exactly who these individuals are. So it's that's a lot, but that's kind of what I think I'm thinking of.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the sausage factory so many times. I haven't heard that one in a while. It's an awesome. It's a really. I really like that phrase though, because it describes it perfectly. So just for people that are listening, when Gavin's talking about the sausage factory, it just means just filling sausages real quick, getting stuff out, getting emails out real quick. And like in other companies, we used to use cadencing tools that we just throw email addresses into, and we call them sausage makers, and that would be part of the sausage factory. So you just get emails, top of funnel emails that don't even know who you are, and just throw them into an email cadence. And that email cadence would basically be the sausage maker,
Yeah.
So no, I agree with you there. I think it's you mentioned a couple of interesting things there about sales and marketing playing a bit of a role in there, that if you're sending marketing qualified leads across over to the sales team, then they should be happy at what they're getting. And I think from my side, that depends on the qualification. Like what's your criteria? Like what is an MQL to you? And that's something that I think a lot of companies struggle with in the beginning. Like they say, we need more MQLs, or they hear MQLs floating around, and then we're like, what you need to understand is that an MQL is different to every company.
Right.
So like, be interested to hear from your side, Liam, like how do you guys use MQLs over at Cognism? Is this a term that you guys use? And if so, how do you go about and classify an MQL?
Yeah, I suppose actually we've always just called them leads. It's kind of funny when, you think about marketing qualified lead. I mean, what is like a lead needs to fit your sales team's expectations like straight away. There's no point generating leads if they have to become an MQL. That's just an email address you've collected that doesn't fit. So yeah, I mean, again with what we would now, I suppose, call an MQL, but we've always just referred to lead. I think we've started to build out a bit more of a process around that. It's just, I think what an MQL to us is just anyone that we can say fits into that firmographic part that we're going after, exactly the companies we're looking for, the industry we're going for, and then also that meet the job titles that we want to try and target at the same time. And that's all, we've hashed that all out entirely with sales. So, we have regular meetings with them to complete or constantly update that, find out what's working. Some things work for some campaigns and some not for others, and we know then what leads we're trying to get for them. And like sometimes we find out that they're having conversations with some of the leads that we would have otherwise thought like, oh well, that would fit our firmographic, that would fit like the job title spec, but actually they're not getting anywhere. So I feel like MQLs are just like the start for something more. They can be like a good predictor of where you want to go. Like to get to like SQOs and revenue, but I wouldn't like lose my head over them too much. It's just something that we're constantly working to sort of perfect and just give the best opportunity to make more revenue, really.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, is around the revenue piece, and Gavin also mentioned that is like the first step towards creating new revenue. And it's I think people also get a bit mixed up in the abbreviations a little bit. I think in the marketing world, there's too many abbreviations. That's clear. Like that does my head in. And it also, what it does is it puts people into a bit of an anxious position if they don't know what those abbreviations mean. I remember when I first joined like the tech space, and there was people talking about SaaS, ARR, MQL, SQL, SAL. I was like, hold on a sec, I don't know what half of these things mean. Does that mean that I'm a bad marketer? It was like, no, like just, I think the important part is to keep it simple. And I think you mentioned that about Cognism, was like, you just said, well, not necessarily call them MQLs, we just call them leads. Right? let's just keep it simple, right? And I actually think that's a really good approach. just keep it as simple as possible. Like, I think it's simple enough to say, is this somebody that you can sell to or not? Right? That should be your initial qualifier. Like, right company, right profile. Right? If you can't figure those two things out, like if you can't say, well, I don't know if they're the right profile or the right company, then you probably need to go back and do some work on things like buyer personas and your ICP, so your ideal customer profile. I'm just after using an abbreviation there. I was like, oh damn, I actually just went and fell on my own sword there. But what are your thoughts on that as well, Adam? So like from your perspective, like where do you see the MQL fitting in the overall lead generation piece?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to disagree here, but I couldn't really. So of course I agree with both Gavin and Leo. Do disagree? No, but I completely agree. I am quite sick of this MQL is dead concept, because I still think it's a great measurement early on in the funnel to see in our campaigns if we are at least heading in the right direction, and then we can of course look at sales accepted leads, sales qualified leads, and so on. But I think it's a super valuable measurement early in the funnel. But yeah, what I'm more interested in here is really to look at the intent of it. So usually looking at, okay, what is the conversion intent from a lead, and then qualify to an MQL. That is something that is very important for me.
Yeah, I think like so how are you looking at that intent, Adam?
Basically we try to split it up into two kind of buckets. So we have this kind of what we call high intent leads, or MQLs in this case. I'm kind of the same as Liam there. Everything is a lead. Where high intent is something we have defined as, in our case, it can be a demo request, it can be talk to sales and so on. A low intent lead can be something like this, like a webinar. And then we have these different scenarios that happens after that. For the high intent leads, of course, we want to build this relationship. We probably want to have our sales organization call them right away. But in the other end, in the low intent side, maybe we want them to experience our content over a period of time and then show some activity that we call high intent, and then build that relationship. So I think it's very different how we approach these different buckets that we try to put them in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's been one question that's come in as well from Charlene. She just mentioned that if they only have a small marketing team. So the question is, what if we don't have a marketing team, since we are just an SME? So business development sales is just one person. The boss is kind of the sales and marketing person combined. Like this, this is a tricky position to be in, and you need to do some level of marketing. And it's important that you're not like, so the way that I would describe it is, if you've got a website, which if you don't have a website, then you should probably go get one. But that would be my first piece of advice. So I'm guessing you have a website. So I'm guessing when people actually search for you or are looking for whatever you have to provide, they're ending up on your website somehow, right? So they're finding out about you, okay? Now, it would be a bit like, without having something on your site which enables them to contact you or do something or interact with you, it's some means, right? It would be basically like having a clothes shop with no clothes in it, and people coming in through the door and then not being able to like even look at clothes, right? Or interact with this. It's just an analogy, but I think it depends on, like, if you're so Charlene, my advice would be, if you have a like a founder or your boss is the person that's focused on marketing, make sure you've got the basic things in place. So things like, if you go to the website, there's a contact us form. That contact us form is going to somebody on the sales team. And then anybody on the sales team that's then receiving those contact us requests should be following up with those within the first hour, right? That would be my advice. And then you don't need to have like this multi-touch model whereby you're reaching out over many channels and you're putting people into different buckets and different things like that. Just keep it simple. Think of it like a problem that I've always had with lead generation, demand generation, marketing nowadays is that we always try to make it seem complex to people, what we do, whereas actually what we're trying to do is just interact with people. That's really all we're trying to do. And it does get more complex if you add in more channels and more messages and trying to segment different different customers into different prospects, customers into different buckets, and then like communicate in different ways with each of them. But ultimately, what you're trying to do there, Charlene, is basically just create a contact with people, right? I don't know if anybody else sees it different, guys. Does anybody see anything different in that?
Not different necessarily. It's just as you were saying. It's kind of looking at the journey you want to take the customer on, and you know, how many touches, I guess, before someone actually picks up the phone and speaks to them. So of course I'm going to go down the route of using the right tech to sort of help you out. And I jest, but it's, you know, we do work with a lot of teams that are very small, and there's only one person in the marketing team, and they're doing everything. So, you know, if you can have some sort of automated process to help you along the way, then use that. But I agree, you know, don't overcomplicate things if you don't need to. But there are tools to help you sort of collect the data, you know, put it into the right bucket, the first contact that you make with them, the first email, and then sort of judging from there. And I think someone said it before about, you know, judging sort of intent, but, you know, putting the right content in front of them and understanding whether or not you need to sort of hit them at this time, or you still need to continue to nurture them. So that's where automation can come into play. And I think if you've got a small team, you just need to use the tech as much as possible, but don't forget that you know you're dealing with humans at the end of the day. So put a human touch on it too.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And that again comes back down to the intent piece. Like if somebody's showing greater intent, then you should always have somebody from business development or somebody then put a personal touch in there. You know, so pick up the phone. If that's what the action required there is, pick up the phone or send a personal email or whatever it might be. But again, as you mentioned there, Gavin, like there are many tools out there that you can use which are focused on automating that piece as well. So but again, I think with the automation thing as well, you need to think about like using automation in a way that's a little bit out of the box. I think, or a little bit outside the box, not out of the box, outside the box. Because if you go and you try to just tick it off as something that you're doing, to say, oh yeah, we've automated some process, we're automating emails, you'll find very quickly that you're not going to get any result out of it, you know? So yeah. Liam, what are your thoughts there, mate?
Well, I just think because of when I started at Cognism, and we were a very small team, and we just needed to do anything. So my big advice is just to get something out. Like there was no overcomplicating. I was coming from a company before, it's much bigger marketing team, and then I was thinking about all these things we could do, but actually it was just like, let's just get an ad live. And you know what? If it's an inbound lead or it's a content lead, let's just follow it up and just see what happens, and go like that. And you know, at that time as well, you're not getting enough through that really you have to worry about classifying it. You just get the lead through and you pick up the phone and you're like, hello, no nurtures, just get it done. And then after you start to build something out, we just built on it, you know. Then it was like, oh, look, if we start nurturing these content leads, look at our conversion rate go up. You know, if we put a proper SLA and compensation on inbounds, look how much better they get picked up. And you can just build on it, like start everything small and build it out. It's so easy to go in thinking like, I want this epic machine that just makes everything amazing, but you just don't have the time, and you just need to get something up. And like overthink the ad as well, and put an ad up and think, oh, I spent ages on that, and then the one that I hated the most does the best. So yeah.
That's always the way, man. It's always the thing that you think, this is going to be shit. And this one's amazing. And then you see it and you're like, oh, how could I be so wrong?
Right. If I don't like it, I know it's going to do well.
It's a good rule of thumb, man. It's a good rule to have. I mean, like it's interesting. I think like you hit the nail on the head there. Start the process off small. Like I typically, when I've come into marketing teams and in the size of companies I've come into is like people are like the typical like pushback from sales is, oh, the leads that we're getting, if any, are really bad, right? And marketing teams think that they're offering, you know, great leads. And then there's this complete disconnect between what's happening on the marketing side and the sales side, right? There's no connection really. And everybody's just sort of off doing their own thing. Marketing are off spending money, but not in a very clever way, because sales are looking at the stuff that they're getting into the door and being like, this is like up with this. And it's then sometimes it's going back to the marketing teams, sometimes it's not. So
we are breaking records, so I think it's fine.
Oh yeah, well there you go. Marketing,
Exactly.
marketing are smashing it. I don't know what's wrong with the sales.
Oh,
I mean,
again, we made a record this month.
there you go. There you go. So sales, I don't know. I don't even. So the funny question for this is for marketers is you ask them, okay, well, how much of your leads have turned into revenue? And they're like, revenue we don't care about. That's a sales thing. You know? so like that's interesting. But just on that, Adam, how have you seen things evolve over the past while? Alignment between marketing and sales and that. Like, what's your experience?
Yeah, I've been in this types of role in a few companies now, and I also come from this, kind of volume thinking, looking at MQLs, especially also from the sales side. Actually, okay, we need more MQLs because that's where we'll hit revenue. And all the months where we are actually bringing in loads of, SQLs qualified pipeline, but the MQLs are going down, then sales come screaming still because we don't have that buy-in. But I think it has actually changed a lot, at least in the organizations I've been in now, where this revenue contribution are, a discussion that is on the table for real, because we can in so many more ways measure, okay, this is at least what marketing contributes to revenue. We don't care about attribution really, because we look at the whole picture, and marketing seems to contribute here to about 50%, which is good. If it's 40, if it's 60, that doesn't matter, because we as a company as a whole are going in the right direction. And I've also heard, I don't remember who said it, but like you need a management who gets marketing for this to be able to work. And I think that's so true. Because if you don't have a management or a CEO who doesn't understand that marketing is actually contributing to sales, then it's impossible. So I think that's probably what has changed most for me, is to work with salespeople or management that also understands the contribution of a marketing team. And I think that has been the most valuable in the last few years.
I think that's very true. I think that comes from the top, as you said, from the CEO. The CEO doesn't understand that, then you're going to be swimming against the current quite often.
Yeah,
because they're not going to appreciate the value of marketing really. And as a marketer, what you're going to end up doing is quite a bit of printing the next t-shirts for the next business run rather than doing lead generation. That's one of the thing I was referred to as, like, if you have a CEO that thinks that way, you will be constantly doing the t-shirts for the next business run rather than doing lead generation. Like that's the thing. But we have a couple more questions come in here. So Catherine has asked, do you take account of timing of when somebody's ready to buy as part of the MQL process? So if they say, hey, contact me in 6 months, is that still considered an MQL? And who nurtures them in the meantime? Is it marketing or sales? So Liam, I'll start with you on this one, mate.
Yeah. So I suppose at that point that we found out that they'll say, oh, contact us in 6 months, they've already spoken to a salesperson. We wouldn't, whether they, even if they wanted to see a demo at that point, they wouldn't become a sales qualified opportunity because we're working off BANT at that point. So obviously timing would be off. So then we would, the normal process is to put them back into like a lead status nurture, at which point we pick them up as marketers in a marketing sort of nurture program that we run. And then we collect them all in a part afterwards, see those sort of timings reasons, and like hold on to different leads for longer. They get pulled into other programs as well, even past that nurture. And that nurture will just include really simple stuff. It's literally for them to get to know the brand, get them to follow our podcasts, newsletters, LinkedIn. We want them on everything. So then, when they are around to buy and they've seen us talking the whole time, and then that would be, the main purpose of that. And it's only value in it. We're not trying to push them for anything. We might offer them a small, 25 free leads at the end, which is just our favorite offer anyway. But that's just to see if we can tip them over the edge ahead of time. But so that, it would come back to us, and then eventually, it'll go back to sales again.
Nice little plug there for the 25 free leads there as well, man. You managed to get that one in. No, I agree. I really like your point around just offering value. I think there's far too many marketers that push the product message down people's throats and just be like, hey, buy from us today, buy from us today, buy from us today. You know, I just it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know, it never does. Gavin, what are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, I was sort of nodding away and agreeing. And just to your point there about the sort of the not always pushing the sale all the time, I think that's a massive one. You know, you have different sort of avenues for building up that lead. So you know, Liam mentioned the you know, podcast, and it's great that you said that, because that's what we're doing now as well. You know, it's not always you're not always driving people to leave their details, you know, gated content in order to get what you've produced. Sometimes it's just interesting stuff that you're putting out there that's going to help you to make a more of a connection with the brand. So when you are ready, you know, that's going to be the one thing that helps you to convert. Because I think far too often now, a lot of brands are very similar. So the one thing that's going to sort of set you apart is going to be your content, or at least the vibe that you sort of, you know, you give off as a business. So that's definitely something to sort of focus on. But in terms of the timing, you're going to know, right? And what we probably have to do is, again, have a connection with the sales guys and get them to let go of the lead, because inevitably sales guys are going to want to hold on to these leads as long as possible. But to you know, for them to trust you, as Adam's saying, so that you can nurture them a bit more. So when they are ready, when that time does come, you're ready to sort of convert them across. But yeah.
Yeah, it's it. Yeah, you mentioned one thing there around, like, well, it's a lot about adding value, and it's a lot about, again, I think this goes back to I think it was Adam's point before about Adam's point about like having a CEO that understands, or at least a management team that understands that, like that you need to be, or understands the marketing piece, because with that, by offering value, it's almost stronger than just getting people to fill out forms.
Sure.
So like if you're constantly tipping away, adding this bit of value here, adding this bit of value here, and not be like the entire time, purchase from us, purchase from us, purchase from us. Like, one of the things that does my head in is seeing even people on LinkedIn sharing content, like C-levels sharing LinkedIn content, which is very much, we have this new feature, which is great, you need to buy it. And they just keep on pushing that message as the only thing they post. And like, it's getting no interaction, right? Like, you may as well just not share it. Like, it's not really doing much. But that sort of brings me to the point around gating content. So when I say gating content, guys, I mean, for people that are listening, I mean, just putting a form on top of ebooks, white papers, whatever you have to offer, videos, whatever, so that you capture people's details. Adam, what are your thoughts there around gating content?
Yeah, I think for me, it really depends. I think in the case where you have something that is super, you know, premium, this doesn't actually exist anywhere else. Let's say like this webinar, of course exists, but not in this setting, perhaps with exactly this kind of crew. I get the point of gating. I really do. When you have something that is not available anywhere else, is it like knowledge that you can find somewhere else for free? I don't see the point at all. Because when we create content, I think all the content that we create should have a purpose. It should be towards either a specific target group in a specific stage of the funnel, where they should themselves get interested basically in taking the next step, the next content piece or so on. And usually, I don't think gated content is needed that much anymore. I do, however, still think it's relevant in the case of premium content like this. I think that's very different.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think, just to add to your point a little bit, if you want to ungate content, if you want to have stuff that's readily available, you need to do plenty of it. You don't just do one ebook and then, we've got that one ebook and it's done now. You need to constantly tip away at it, because by having ungated content, what you're trying to do is get more people interacting with it and spread a bit of a message, right? So like, if you're doing it that way, to just say, okay, let's just push out everything we want, but let's not have any forms on our site, and let's just try to educate people. You're not going to solve that problem. You're not going to solve the world's problems or solve your prospects' problems by just one piece of content. So if you're going to do that approach, my advice would be, then keep tipping away at it. Keep offering more and more and more value, because what you're doing is you're building up to when they're going to be ready to purchase a solution like what you provide. And then they're going to say, oh, this company offered a lot of value to me in the past 12 months or whatever, and they're top of mind, and they solved that particular problem because I've been reading their content, and I haven't had to go put in my email details, and I haven't been chased by them all the time because I put in my email details. But it's a long-term play, and it comes back to your point from before about C-levels understanding marketing and understanding that piece is important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think we often talk now about, okay, people have these short attention spans, but I think that's totally, that's not really right when you are interested in that knowledge or getting that knowledge. People want to read so much, especially now when they're home. So yeah, it's probably a longer play, but yeah, it can probably scale insanely if you do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Liam, interested to hear your point of view here as well, because I've been speaking with your CMO, Alice, and myself and Alice talk every couple of weeks. Alice is great, and I really like the stuff that you guys are doing out there, and just interested because you guys are doubling down a bit on brand this year, and with that, there's obviously spreading more valuable content, and maybe going the ungated route. Like, what way are you thinking about doing this? I guess you're the person that's responsible for it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, we started off and we've gated a lot of stuff. And that was because lead gen was the primary aim. We needed to get something up and running. And now I think it's about looking at it, and we do need to ungate things. It's about looking at what is actually worth it to us. Like, if we've just got something gated and no one's completing that form, why on earth is it gated when they could come to the website and read it and maybe gain some value and want to speak to us? I mean, that's not worth our time at all. However, if we're, running like a LinkedIn ad for it, or like even it's sat on the website and people are completing that form all the time for it, then we know there's value in gating it. We know that people want that information and are willing to exchange like their details for it. So I think that's the bit that we're coming to now, is to like know when to ungate. Sometimes you can start gating, you can sunset it, do it quicker than you think if it's not going to work out. It's just like testing anything in marketing. And also something we've always done from the beginning, it doesn't have to be like, there's always a great debate, isn't it, like to gate or to ungate. You can actually kind of run a hybrid model on it. Like, a lot of our stuff can be like in a big ebook could be found in the blog, because that's where it's written first, and it's broken down, and then we're just repackaging it. There are some things that we would gate as well, but if people search hard enough, they'd find it as an SEO page, but we're also running it as an ad. And I know that sounds cheeky, but you can, if it's an interactive marketing, some people will be willing to fill a form at that point, whereas people searching it and really wanting it will find it themselves. So yeah, you can do a bit of both as well.
Fully agree. I think gating the content that offers big value, like, let's say, for example, checklists are like a super thing to gate, because people are super happy to download a checklist, which is normally a one pager, right? And it would typically be involved with a blog post, which is around a specific topic. Let's take, for example, if you're, selling an SEO tool, for example, it would be the top 10 things that you can be doing, top 10 SEO checklist, whatever, and have that as part of the giveaway from the blog post that you're bringing people to from search. But yeah, it's interesting. It's one thing actually I want to focus on a little bit here as well, Gavin, and just get your thoughts on, because you've got such a broad background in email as well, and as an email expert, be interested to hear, like, because of the gating piece and what we were just speaking about, like, email still does play a big role in that sort of education piece, right? Even regardless of how many people you're actually getting into your email tool at the moment based on gating or not. But what's the trends that you're seeing from a B2B perspective when it comes to email and how people are using the tool?
How people are using the tool. I mean, there's two things in there: how people are actually using it and how they can be using it as well. But I think I saw a question somewhere about what you should be collecting in the first place, and it's an interesting one, because that does help you in terms of how you're going to be using email. If you just go out and collect the email address, then you're very limited in what your next step is. And that's where I tend to see a bit of a difference between a B2C and B2B world. With B2C, you can tend to just pick up email address and run with that. With B2B, because you're trying to make these leads marketing ready or sales ready, whatever, you probably need to have that next step. So being honest with yourself as well, and asking what you need versus what you want. So maybe the company name, how many people within the business, the individual that you're targeting, and what they're, how far along the line they are in terms of purchasing. Think about those things first, and then that can help you to sort of kick on to what you're actually going to do with email. And I kind of mentioned it before about looking at the journey you want the contact to go on. If you have a good understanding of that, that's how your email is going to sort of spiral out, and you'll be able to send more targeted, more relevant email. But it's not. I'd say it's not rocket science, because you've said I'm an email expert, but it isn't rocket science really. It's all about making sure you're sending. And here's one for the bingo books. You're sending the right message to the right person at the right time. That's what it's all about. And in order to do that, you need to have the right data. So having that right data allows you to fire that message in the right time and right way. And that's all it is really. Obviously there's nuances, and you can go down the rabbit hole a little bit more and get more targeted and more relevant, and use things like RFM. But ultimately it's all about getting the right data so you can target the right people. Yeah, that's correct. Like that's the question that came in there from Keith. I'm just looking at here. Keith Hayden wrote, like, for lead gen forms, what fields do you feel are mandatory? Is email enough, or would you use more? Sales teams often want direct contact number, but do you feel having more fields become a barrier and affect conversion? Well, another answer to that is Liam said it, and he's nailed it there, because we can almost like stop talking now. is testing. Testing is the way forward. I say this to a lot of people all the time. I can tell you what best practice is, but is that best practice for you? Best way is to test it out. Test it and do some proper testing, not just sort of, oh yeah, it didn't work, and then give up. Do some proper testing, and then you know what works for you, and that's what's best practice, and that works for the data you should be collecting in forms. 100%. I think, like, some rules of thumb on that from my side, I think depends on the form. Like, if you're talking about top of funnel stuff like downloading ebooks and whatnot, my opinion there is you don't need to ask for too much. Like, it's again, it comes back down to this intent piece that Adam mentioned before. If somebody's reaching out, like, let's say, for example, you have a contact us form on your website. So somebody's saying, I want you to contact me, then it's probably wise to have a phone number in there. Like, that's, I put it that way. And even with that as well, I think just to sell Cognism a little bit here as well, Liam, you're welcome. In that, like, if somebody does just give their email address and whatnot, there are tools out there that you can use in order to get phone numbers for that individual as well, right? So it's just an FYI, so tools, so just Cognism. But yeah, like, that's an interesting point there. Okay, well, let's move on a little bit, and let's talk a bit about what's happened over the past year, guys, and how your approaches have changed. Now, Liam, we've spoken a little bit about Cognism focusing on brand. Like, Adam, what have you done to adapt over the past year, like moving everything online, basically?
Yeah, I have actually talked quite a lot now with the team at GetAccept as well. So I have a pretty good idea about what they've been doing as well. And I think, COVID-19 has actually made it, everything have moved online. So it have become a lot easier for, products that makes it easier to sell online. It is so much easier to get out there now with, like, GetAccept is a sales enablement and e-signing solution. And it is so much easier to get people to understand that, because people have been forced to rethink how they sell online. I think before, when you talk to these, I'm based in Sweden, when you talk to these old industrial companies, they have no idea what e-signing is. They don't care really. Now everyone knows what it is. They are forced to do so. So I think what has changed is that actually more people is coming to us, which might be different for different products, of course. But for a product that actually helps people sell online, I think it's the same for Leadfeeder probably. Yeah, more people are realizing the need for it. So yeah, I think something that has been tougher, however, is this kind of, I would say, large investments, you know, like a CRM for a big corporation. I think that's a lot harder in this time. Yeah.
So you're talking about those larger business decisions that need to be made. So if you're talking about a CRM, let's say, for example, an investment in Salesforce or an investment in one of those larger tools, I think those are always difficult sales anyway. There's many touch points involved in that. And I think in-person events play a big role in that, I think as well. Like I think this be an interesting one for Gavin, because with you guys, Gavin, I haven't been in that space myself. It's typically a more expensive purchase. Like it's not. It depends on the site. It depends on many factors, but it's not an overnight decision. Typically, there's number of decision makers involved. It's an investment. It's a big investment for most companies that do invest in a platform like yourselves. Just being interested in hearing how you guys have found the last year and how you guys have sort of pivoted there to address that.
It's been a learning curve. Let's say that. No, but I mean, we relied heavily on sort of face-to-face events. It's one of the things, you know, and it's being in different markets as well. I think it's been nice to be able to sort of travel and see people face-to-face and have those events. So obviously straight away we just looked to pivot and bring a lot of events online. Which everyone has, but we sort of really focused on making these events as engaging, interactive as possible, to really sort of get over the hump of not actually being in front of people. So we did a lot of that. We mentioned the podcast as well. That's been another thing which we sort of pivoted towards, to give people another sort of outlet to connect with us on. And actually things like running our own round tables have been a great way of connecting with people. So you sort of bringing, yes, it's virtual, but you're doing sort of smaller pieces with either prospects or customers, and allowing them to, as I said, be more interactive with you and talk. So those have been a couple of things that we've done. And again, we've always been churning out sort of good content, but to focus on what content really connects, and you know, just being empathetic to people's situation and connect with them on a human level.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty nicely there. It's, if you're able to connect to people on the human level, it typically means that you're offering them some value into their day. So you're not coming in and saying, hey, you need dotdigital right away, you need to buy it now, or the world is going to end for you. This is really important. Let's create more urgency for you. It's more sort of, hey, like, I know a lot about marketing. You're probably struggling with marketing. Let me try fix this one problem that you have, and it's not going to cost you anything, right? Mm-hmm. I'll take a look at that for you. Or like, we have this piece of content that's going to solve that specific problem, or scratch that itch that you have, you know. And just, if you scratch enough itches, then, you know, there might be there might be something at the end of the road. Then it is. I've heard mixed things, like, because like what Adam mentioned there, is that it would sort of go back to maybe extending out the sales cycles and those larger deals. I've heard mixed reviews on that, in that it's actually, if a lot of companies that have played their cards right over the past year have managed to actually speed up sales cycles, which has been interesting as well. Because as you mentioned, Gavin, like, in the space that you're in, a lot of the business would have been done at events. So it's meeting people on a trade show floor. You'd have 2 or 3 of the key decision makers there, actually going from vendor to vendor, understanding what they do, getting a demo on site. Mm-hmm. And then you'd automatically, you'd have an opportunity in the CRM as soon as you leave the event floor, basically. and then you
Yeah.
work with it from there. But it's interesting. Have you found good success in those digital events that you've been doing?
Our events have been really good, and we actually got. I think everyone kind of saw maybe a bit of a dip as people were evented out, virtually evented out. But actually, we've done pretty well in terms of our regular events and making sure we find topics that sort of resonate with people. We've big advocate of asking your audience what it is they want to hear about, and then actually producing that content. So that's what we've been doing, and it's worked pretty well, getting good numbers. So that's
Nice.
something we're going to continue to do.
Nice, congratulations, man. That's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, not to toot our own horn or anything, and rub it in people's faces, but it's been working.
Kind of a big deal, don't worry about it. Very humble of you there, Gavin.
Thank you. I like to think so too.
No, but it's good news, man, because I've heard mixed reviews over the past year about people doing digital events. It's quite an undertaking to do it. I think for companies to do it is better. The industry events, in my opinion, are fine, but it's hard for people to justify sponsoring them and also paying for tickets to them. I think it's,
yeah,
there's not much that can be done about that. It's just how it is. Can't be changed. But thanks for that, Gavin. Like, there's a couple more questions come in. There's one in particular from Frank about using Leadfeeder and actually how to figure out the actual people visiting from those companies that are visiting the page. Frank, I'd ask maybe if you could reach out to me on LinkedIn. I could bring you through some of that stuff. Feel free to get me on LinkedIn. Andy Culligan. I think Johnny's on the webinar as well. It's one of the guys from the marketing team here. Johnny, if you could share people's LinkedIn details, that would be helpful as well. And what we can do is we can follow up with that. I'm just looking through some of the other questions here. Just want to make sure we have everything covered, and we only have 8 minutes left. One thing that did come up is the best way to give feedback to marketing on when leads are bad. So, Liam, how are you guys doing that over at Cognism?
So it's just that we're made it so we're totally aligned. So we're just one big revenue team. I have like a meeting with, so we've organized it that we have the SDRs who do sort of outbound, but we've got MDRs who are like marketing development reps that work all marketing generated leads. So then we're particularly tight with them. So, if we have an SQO or revenue problem, we both have the same problem and we both got to resolve it. So there's no back and forth on the leads. Then it's literally like, okay, we're both in trouble. Let's figure this out. And that's how we do it. So I have that meeting with the lead each week. We have a Slack channel that we talk in all the time. If something comes wrong, to post back. So I expect feedback at all times and welcome it. And then we will literally change and pivot to whatever they say, coupled with support by the data as well. Because obviously you do need to look into that, because sometimes you can get an impression for something that maybe isn't actually the case. But that's how we do it, really.
Okay, I mean, that works. I've seen everything from sales just shouting across the office, the leads are shit, to having a very detailed process there. It depends on how your setup is. It's if you're using a marketing automation platform, along with your CRM tool, it makes it ultimately easier. But if you don't have that, depending on the size of your organization, it could be as simple as just setting up a feedback session between sales and marketing. Marketing to understand, I think the most important thing is for marketing to understand why leads are bad, right? It's like, what is the reason for this, and if you're able to bucket those reasons, all the better. So if you're able to say, okay, come up with maybe 20 reasons why leads could be bad, or 5 reasons, whatever it might be, and then see, okay, like we're having a lot of these specific problems with our leads, like let's say wrong industry, right? And you're seeing, okay, well, a lot of the stuff we're bringing in is wrong industry. Why is that? Is that we must be doing something wrong with our content. We're attracting the wrong types of industries, or we're attracting the wrong types of people. Adam, what type of experience have you seen there in terms of getting feedback from sales around the efforts that you've been doing?
Yeah, I completely agree with Liam. I think if you're aligned with kind of the revenue goal, I think the easiest way is just to talk to sales. But I do think, however, that that if you know we have these kind of measurements that everyone is aligned on, we have MQLs, we have something in between, an opportunity is created as well. We can probably fetch that pretty fast if something is wrong. If we look at that day to day, and we can look at, okay, the MQLs that are getting in now seems to not be in our industries. Well, probably they shouldn't even be an MQL in the first place, so that shouldn't happen. But I think we can take both a qualitative and a quantitative approach to it. But I think, yeah, just talk to sales. I think is the best tips, probably, as Liam said.
Never. Don't ever talk to sales. The number one cardinal sin in marketing. Speaking with a salesperson. Nah, come on. That's good advice, and you'd be surprised how many marketers don't speak with sales, and vice versa. They just get on with their day-to-day, working both in silos, and then it ends up that, again, as I said at the start, a lot of money ends up being wasted because marketing are bringing in leads that sales aren't even looking at. And one of the things that I would give people advice on in marketing is, if you are giving leads over to the sales, you own them until they turn into revenue. I'm holding you accountable for those leads that you're paying for as a CMO. I'll hold you accountable for the leads that you're bringing in from your team that aren't turning into revenue. Like, why are we spending money on them? That's, you're basically throwing money down the drain, if it is not turning into revenue. So like, have some ownership on that and really carry them through.
I really like that point, because I think that's a missing point in many organizations. Also due to the name marketing qualified lead, which makes it, okay, then we're out. But yeah, that's not really the case.
Yeah, because
I think that's
there's
great.
like a switch in marketers' heads when the lead comes in, it goes over to sales. Okay, we're done with this. My job here is done. It's up to sales now to take it on to the next level. That's up to them. But I've always worked. Any bosses I've worked for have always pushed me to, own it all the way down through until at least it gets to opportunity stage. That's a given. But just focus on time here, guys. Just before we finish up, just be interested in hearing a tip from each of you, like in terms of going into the rest of this year. Just one tip that you would give to marketing teams that are looking to improve their, let's say, lead gen or demand gen efforts. And Gavin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a bad one, but maybe it's good that we continue to hit the same point home, because I was going to say, speak to the sales team. It's a simple one, because you're both on the same team, so kind of act like it, basically. So yeah, it is simply just that, but also what we were talking about right in the beginning, which is getting them to understand what it is you're creating. So if you are creating content, and what it means to the individual downloading it, and then what it means to the salesperson in order to get that to convert. So make sure that they're part of that process as well.
Absolutely. Liam.
Probably quite basic, but just try and test something new. Like 100%. There'll be like something that you'll look at and you'll think, oh, that's the only way of doing it. But just try something, even the smallest change to it. I don't know, like if you're retargeting, are you retargeting only for a demo request? How about try, I don't know, retargeting content or a bottom of funnel webinar or something like that. Try hitting audiences in different ways, assuming that maybe your current message is tired. And that's what we're doing, just constantly trying to tweak things, test it. Half of them fail, more than half of them fail, but then you'll find some gem and it changes like a few months for you until you need to start again. But yeah, that would be my tip.
There's no such thing as a failed test. There's only learnings.
Yes.
That's all it is. Never a failure, only a learning. Thanks, Liam. Adam.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to this, but really make sure that you're aligned with your management and your CEO about what the marketing is actually here to do. I think that's the base, really, because otherwise, it won't be possible to really do anything.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for that. There was one final question here, and this is coming in from Steve. Steve, thanks for joining. I know Steve. it just asked to have me comment on Frank's question. So Frank's question was just around recognizing individuals in Leadfeeder. So yes, there are many ways of doing this. Just before we finish up, so Leadfeeder recognizes the companies which are visiting your site. Through the content in which they're being served, you can recognize the user persona of that specific profile. So if people are visiting sales content versus marketing style content, then you can be pretty sure that it's a sales user versus a marketing user. That's a very easy use case I just used there. At the same time, we also offer a number of integrations with other tools such as ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, and using those tools as well, we're able to determine who the individual is based on the type of campaigns that you're sending. So there are possibilities there. In saying that, I did mention on Frank's question, if Frank could reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, and also Steve, if you also want to be involved, please feel free to reach out. I would be happy to organize a separate session whereby we can have a chat about those things. But just to finish up on that, but guys, last thing for me, massive thank you for this. This has been really, really insightful. I think there's been lots of things to take away from my side. And I also hope for the audience, been lots of questions, which is always a good sign, you know. It's been insightful to see what each of you guys are doing. Really, really excited to see the stuff that's going to be coming out from each of you over the course of the year. And Adam, best of luck with the new start, mate.
Yeah, let's hope I'm there in a year and we can maybe do one of this again.
Absolutely, you're jumping on a rocket ship there by the sounds of things. So
exactly, no pressure on me. So I think that's great.
Exactly. Liam, best of luck with the stuff that you guys are doing over at Cognism. I'm excited to see how the brand work is gonna go over the next couple of months. I know it's an exciting time for you guys, and you guys are growing rapidly as well. And also with entry into the US market there as well, it's going to be big news for you. So I wish you all the best there as well.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully we'll keep the rocket ship going.
Absolutely. And Gavin, all the best with the new role as well over at dotdigital. I know your space pretty well. I know your company quite well. It's got great longevity. Back from the early days, we won't mention what the old company was called. Very similar, but interesting now with the omni-channel approach as well. And I'm really excited to see how you guys are competing with the bigger cloud platforms in there. I'm always voting for the smaller guys, although you guys aren't small, but I guess the bigger cloud platforms, which I believe are quite clunky, but that's just my opinion.
I haven't said that. You've said that.
I said that, but let me say it again. I think the bigger cloud platforms are rather clunky, and tools like dotdigital are the tools that have been built from the ground up and typically offer a better user experience, in my opinion. So,
thank you for saying so. Yeah.
No worries. Guys, thanks again. It's been a really great session, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.